Welcome to We Are Venomaniacs, the Venom Site's official podcast for all of your symbiote news, reviews, and point of views. My name is Orion, and I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts, Carlos.
We made it, baby!
Tyler. And Aaron.
They finally let There Be Carnage.
We're also joined once again by special guest, Jonathan, a.k.a. Carnage Central. Welcome back.
It's awesome to be here again. We finally got to see the movie, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, at last, after a year's delay, we finally come to review. Some of us have been anxiously waiting for, and others dreading, our long-awaited Venom Let There Be Carnage movie review. So the way I figure we can do this, we'll start out, each of us giving us a few points of what we loved or liked about the film. Then after that, we'll get into some of our criticisms of the film, and then we'll wrap this up with what we hope to see for the future of the franchise.
So we don't mind, I'd actually like to talk about a few things before we go into this. So I think when we first did the first movie, we talked about the build up until the movie. So this one, when was it first supposed to come out? Was it October 2020? I think it was
October 1st, 2020 was the original.
Yeah. So then, of course, everything with the virus happened, and we went over a year without hearing anything, and then one day we just randomly got the trailer, and I was one of those folks who said they were going to put out the Morbius movie first, so we're going to have Morbius, then we're going to have Venom, but they just went ahead and just basically scrapped their plan for Morbius, I guess, and we got the Venom trailer, and then soon after that they started posting all of the merchandise. We got a lot more than we did last time. We got Funko Pops, instead of having brisk tea, we got G Fuel. We got a lot of cool stuff, and I'm finally
hot toys.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
hot toys.
Okay.
Hot toys, yeah.
So yeah, there is that side of the merchandising for this movie. But one thing I was pretty shocked to see, I've seen this movie twice now in theaters, and one thing I was extremely shocked to see, absolutely no promotion at the actual theaters. No giveaways, no popcorn buckets, none of that.
Yeah. For that when I went, and I was disappointed to see nothing.
Yeah. Maybe it was just mine, but when I saw the first one, my IMAX was giving away one of the fan posters, and they had the poster, but they weren't giving away the tiny posters, and they had cups, but they didn't have any popcorn, buckets. So I'm guessing just because of the virus.
It must, because I've always gotten the tiny poster whenever I've gone to any IMAX showing, and I went to IMAX for this, and they had nothing for it. So it was just So
now, I will say, however, there are other countries who have gotten certain exclusives. They have a Venom head, a PVC popcorn bucket made out of plastic. Unfortunately for me, again, I didn't see the cups, I didn't see the tin cans, the posters. So I guess maybe they kind of scrapped it for certain countries. I don't know. It kind of feels like that.
Yeah, it's a shame. There was nothing. I asked one of the workers at the theater. I'm like, hey, do you guys have any promotional material, posters, popcorn buckets, anything? And they're like, sorry, we don't have anything. And they think it was COVID, but they don't know for sure. It's probably just COVID about handing out posters, and it's a shame, but that's where we are now.
So I do think overall, though, that I'm pretty happy with what they did with the promotion of the movie. But it was honestly kind of the same things they did with the first one. They had Snapchat filters, same as the first one. They had a drink, same as the first one. They just did a lot of the same stuff, which I was fine with, because I was worried, getting close to the movie, that we didn't have a lot of promotional stuff, but they started rolling things out, pretty quickly. But it finally came out, and now it's here.
Mm-hmm. One of my
Over a
favorite bits of
year.
one of my favorite bits
Yeah.
of promotion was the Twitter accounts, the Eddie's Clubhouse answering random questions, and a few days ago the whole roasting, the Venom account
Yeah.
roasting. I'm still a bit
Yeah.
disappointed they didn't roast me, but it is what it is.
Yeah, like kind of lazy, you know, like it's just an excuse for the guy behind, you know, the screen, like just to like be mean to people, I guess. But
Still,
it's in
that's
character.
that
But no.
sister one. Oh my gosh, the guy deactivated. Still find that funny.
Yeah.
But so disappointed that they didn't roast any of us true Venom fans.
I know. Oof. If they're scared of us, that's why.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like as for me, guys, like I'm just glad I finally saw it 2 days ago because after the crap year that we had for the past 18 months or so, I mean, like they started saying, "Oh, sorry guys, the movie's delayed again and again," and then there was rumors it was going to be delayed until early of next year, and I would have just been so heartbroken if it did. But thankfully, it didn't. So I'm glad things are kind of easing up. So I'm just glad we all saw it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, speaking of delays, I don't know if you guys saw it in your theaters, but I kept on seeing not exactly trailers, but advertisements for not only Venom Let There Be Carnage, but Spider-Man No
Yep.
No Way Home and Morbius.
Is
I
it?
didn't see Morbius, but
There's
I
some
saw
sort
the
of
Spider-Man one.
because I went to two Regal theaters, and they were having some sort of deal with their membership or whatever, where if you saw all three of these films, you got some sort of bonus with their membership. But it was very interesting to see because kept on seeing Morbius and like, oh yeah, that was delayed, wasn't it? It was supposed to come out before Venom.
Mhm. Yeah.
Kind of
It was
forgot
also
about
kind of funny
Morbius.
because Morbius was supposed to be our very first look at the multiverse, because it had like the Vulture in it. But now after that, we had Loki, and of course all this other stuff that's happening. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, so now we have no idea how it's going to work. So
No idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah. Wonder if they'll do reshoots or anything like that for it.
yeah,
I
because
don't
there's
know,
the rumored scene in Morbius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't-
Yeah, like there was a rumored scene years ago that Cletus broke out because Morbius did something at like Ravencroft. But now I don't know if that was true now because just the way the things went down in this movie, or maybe they did a lot of reshoots, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Could be either
All
way,
right.
I guess.
How about we let's get started with the review then,
Yeah.
and we'll start with things we liked.
Gonna be a doozy.
Let's how about go around the table. I'll go based on our order here. I guess it's
Fun.
alphabetical order here. So I'll start with Aaron. What's a point that you liked about the movie?
Well, I was pretty torn on the first movie, and it was pretty much just because I thought just having a Venom movie at all just felt too surreal for me. So it took me like a few watches to actually get how I felt about it. And I think at the end, I just wasn't sure at all. But I will say, walking out of this movie, I felt like I enjoyed it a lot more than the first one. Of course, I have a negative personality, so I'm going to ramble on about the stuff I didn't like. But I generally enjoyed Carnage. I think he was the best part of the whole film. I think Woody did a pretty good job, and I enjoyed him with Shriek, and the action was pretty good. There's a lot of stuff I'll go into that I didn't like, but overall, coming out of the movie, I had a fun time. So I liked it.
Dope. Yeah. And Carlos?
Well, as for me, I think overall, Venom Let There Be Carnage was a significant improvement to the first movie. I mean, again, like the first Venom movie, like it had its problems, and in our last review, we kind of were really bashing it. But after seeing this, I thoroughly really enjoyed myself. Like Tom Hardy as Venom, and playing Eddie Brock as well. Like he again nailed it, right? As for Woody Harrelson playing Cletus Cassidy and Carnage, which I think he also voiced Carnage, correct?
I
Yes,
believe
he
so.
did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did a good
So
job at it.
yeah, like I'm really glad like in the movie like Andy Serkis like he did his homework. Like there were callbacks to Maximum Carnage, the whole crazy love relationship between Cletus and Shriek. Shriek as a character too, like she was decent, she was enjoyable to watch as well. And the fight scenes were great between Venom and Carnage. And yeah, like I just the only thing again, like I said, this was a major improvement from the first film, in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, great. And then Jonathan?
Well, I think I enjoyed the movie overall. I'm very torn on it, but for me, the highlight, without a question, was Woody Harrelson's Cletus Cassidy. For me, he absolutely stole the show. They mentioned a lot of his backstory, which I really liked. One of my favorite scenes was with the letter. Cletus was going over his history, the cartoons in the background. There was him dying at his birth, being reborn, his grandma being shoved down the stairs, his mom and the dog with the power drill. And I really just loved that. That was just all like callbacks to the comics, and it was like I couldn't believe that we're finally seeing this character on screen. And what he really made Cletus feel entertaining, which he should be in the comics. And the breakout scene was done really well as well. I love the whole when he was spinning around with the tornado and he bit the warden's head off. And that just felt like classic Carnage to me, which was awesome. I also liked seeing Eddie and Venom working, like trying to be a lethal protector, but also stay under the radar. Eddie was really sort of tested between doing or trying to restore his career, and I loved seeing that from him because Eddie, it's hard sometimes for him to stay on the right path, and seeing him be struggling with that, I really enjoyed seeing that. And the movie, I think it had a lot of good and a lot of bad, but overall, I definitely enjoyed it as an experience, and I'm thankful we finally got it.
Excellent. And then I'll go up next, and I'll preface everything I'm about to say in this podcast about the movie, and I'll say this. I enjoyed the movie so much, my face hurt from smiling for the entire 97 minutes at the end. And I had jaw problems the next day because, like, oh my God, my jaw hurt so much I was smiling. But that being said, of course, I can't be the ray of sunshine I was the last time we reviewed the first movie. And I do have my criticisms for this one.
I like it. This is the pro section. You're bringing up. Actually, I don't like it. Things, but
yeah, no. I just have to preface that. That don't depend on me to be your ray of sunshine in this podcast. I'll say the thing I really liked was that there were so many comic references in this movie. This thing was chock full. Like, they really did their homework and they stuffed this movie to the gills. Like,
they did their homework. Then why is Carnage card? Yeah, I'm getting that later.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Yep.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that.
Absolutely. See, I absolutely loved this. Like, one of my things on my wish list for this movie was the opening scene to Lethal Protector #1, where he saves the lady from the mugger, and they had that in this movie. Not the exact scene, but it was the ghost of it, and I knew where it was coming from. I'm like, oh my God, thank God that I thank Andy Serkis and Tom Hardy and Kelly Marcel, is it? Or who's the who's the writer? I gotta look her up now. But the co-writer with Tom Hardy on this, I just have to thank all of them and say thank you for giving me that scene. But I was so impressed with how many references there were. Like, you had phenethylamine, the chemical in chocolate and brains from The Hunger, and so many more. And I was very surprised that like you brought up, Jonathan, the Cletus dying, his heart stopping at birth, because that was a very recent development in Cletus's mythology, with Donny Cates adding that, and that was also something cool at the end, seeing all the creators listed. But but yeah, I couldn't contain myself in the theater. I was like, oh my God, that's from that. It's like, oh my God,
Yep.
This is so awesome. All right. And then I'll hand it over to Tyler.
She Venom scene again. Woo!
You horny.
Like, here's the thing.
She-Venom, baby.
We didn't know if there was going to be a She-Venom scene. Obviously, she was in the first movie, and I think people had a pretty positive reaction to it overall. And then there was like rumors of a She-Venom scene, and then like, oh, are they going to get a fight or anything? We don't know. And then the poster came out with her character posters. Then there's the She-Venom silhouette, which was stolen artwork. So but yeah, and then we got another short She-Venom scene, and I'm always down for that. It was great. It was great. I think for me, I really like Anne in these movies. I think she's one of my highlights. I think she's a great character, and it's a shame we don't get to see more of her. Like in this movie, she is sort of just brought up when she needs to, get Venom back to Eddie or whatever. But
yeah, I think Michelle Williams did a lot better in this movie. I think she had a lot more fun with it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she did.
But
the first one to me almost felt more like a job, but from this one, it seemed like she was having more fun. Like she wanted.
Well, that's what she said. She said sometimes you only do things for money, and she said she's only in this film because she believes in Andy Serkis's vision. So, and what did she have to do in this movie? With the Mrs. Chin thing, that was kind of cringe. Not gonna lie, but
Anyway, back to positives.
Yeah.
So basically. So obviously I'm a big fan of She-Venom. We got to see her like doing a little bit more action here, jumping around. And then in general, I'll say the action was fairly good, like you said. I really liked some of the ways they used the Carnage symbiote with like him. Like there was one move he did in the final battle where he was like onto his back, and then he did he twisted like completely so that he was on all fours, like on the other side. He basically like flipped like in place. And there, other than the weird tornado thing, I didn't like that. I thought Carnage
did a General Grievous, like especially with like the arms too.
Yeah, and so then other than the tornado thing, I think Carnage's abilities were utilized very well. I enjoyed seeing they were a little more creative with him. I will say I'm disappointed. We only got to see the axe hand like once, or the scythe hand. Yeah. When he cut the car in half.
That's his signature transformation thing. They should have done more with that.
They should have done more with that.
That's because Riot stole it.
That's true.
Riot, man.
Well, it's also his like Fortnite thing. So like, he could have done his Fortnite pickaxe, Fortnite.
Yeah, he should have Fortnite danced on screen. That would have been great.
I think the tornado was the whole turning to mist thing that they mentioned in interviews. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, but then overall, then him, and then I think Cletus, like Jonathan said, Woody Harrelson and Cletus was very enjoyable. I think he was one of the highlights of the movie for me as well. So, and
yeah, he was.
That's basically where my my pros end. So,
I'll say that another pro I really liked is just the amount of runtime of this movie dedicated to Shriek and her relationship with Cletus. I was surprised how pivotal Shriek was to this movie.
I'll be honest. Shriek is one of my favorite characters. I felt like I wasn't expecting much of her from this movie because it felt like she would be more of like almost like a side character, just like Carnage's girlfriend, not much else. But no, they actually she impressed me in this movie, and I'm very happy with her.
Oh yeah,
obviously there's more that they could have done with the comics, but all things considered, she did very good here.
That's actually one more pro I want to bring up. So yeah, I did enjoy the love story of Shriek and whatnot. But speaking of Shriek, Patrick Mulligan. I'm really happy we got to have Patrick Mulligan in the movie, have a fairly important part, and I'm hoping that's him becoming Toxin in the end, because that made me smile a lot.
I don't think it was.
People are very confused. Yeah, we'll talk about that near the end, where what's happening for the future of the series. But it was kind of confusing. But I'm assuming that's supposed to be Toxin. That's what I'm going with, and it's making me happy.
I have a theory as to why that's Toxin, and I'll explain that a bit later whenever that comes up. But I do think it is Toxin.
Yeah. So upon viewing it a second time, I paid closer attention to that scene. And definitely, even though the main thing you see is his glowing eyes that kind of resemble Shriek's, what you kind of miss is it does that kind of symbiote thing right before that you saw in the first movie every time the symbiote took over someone.
Okay.
It was like the little glaze over, you mean?
Yeah, it was a very brief glaze over. And then
I thought I saw that. I thought I saw, even though I've only seen it the one time, I thought I saw that the first time. So
I'll have to look at that next time I go see it. And I guess I'll just mention it now, but Toxin in the comics has blue speech bubbles, so I figured that might have had something to do with the eyes, maybe, because Toxin would always have the blue speech bubbles. I figured that might be a little reference.
It is true, yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
I was gonna say
all
that
right.
I like how they with Shriek, he had like a personal grudge, like the intertwined between Patrick Mulligan and Shriek because they had a long history together. So I did like that as well. So
Yeah. They were trying to do like the Harley like in Joker thing. Like, not that that's a bad thing, because
Carnage and Shriek
you
have
want to
always
give
been
them
better.
some sort of sympathy, which, I mean, they went a little bit too overboard with Carnage at the end on the sympathy, but like we'll talk about that.
I think
But
Cletus should. He's someone that you feel bad for, but he shouldn't want you to know about it. But yeah, we'll get into that a bit later.
Yeah, like they added 2 lines at the end that they should have axed off. But anyway, but yeah. All right, now it's time to shut off the podcast if you don't want to hear anything negative.
I actually still have a couple of positive points.
All right.
Yeah, but before we rip into this, let's turn it over to Orion one more time.
So another positive point I like is how much more Miss Chen action we got. Like, we saw a bit of Miss Chen in the trailers and stuff, but we got a lot more of her, and I really liked how she was being a bit snippy with Venom and Eddie at the beginning there.
Yeah,
and I liked that Venom ended up body hopping onto her for a little bit, and that scene was pretty funny, at least for me.
I don't know.
And then another thing I really liked is just how compact the story line and the runtime was. Like, it was like, even though it was only 97 minutes, it did not feel short to me.
I agree, and I felt like my time wasn't being wasted at any point either. There were no scenes where it's like, is this really necessary? Can we get back to the main stuff? It felt like it was you were involved the whole time.
Yeah.
The runtime was fine.
The first movie, we're like super happy. It's not 2.5 hours, right? Like, I think 1:30 was perfect.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
One more thing I will say positive about the movie. Like, I did like the overall cinematography. I like how the camera panned, to landscape views, and also the CGI it felt to me like the CGI was more polished than the first one, because in the first one it did kind of seem like it was somewhat sloppy, unfinished, but in Venom Let There Be Carnage, it felt more polished. So I did like that.
I think we have a lot of that we have to owe to Andy Serkis, because he's Mr. CGI King.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think that the delays may have also helped with the CGI. They could have had more time to polish it, so the delays might have been a blessing in disguise almost.
Yeah. All right, and then my final thing I liked about this was the mid-credits scene, and not because of the reasons that most people like it, but because it's almost exactly how I imagined Venom reacting to Spider-Man.
You mean the teenage boy, underage Spider-Man?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the way I imagined it back when the first Venom movie came out was that if there was going to be a crossover, it would end up with or maybe this is not during the first Venom movie, but after Far From Home. But my imagination was that Venom would end up seeing the Daily Bugle news report, and he said exactly what I thought he was going to say, and said, "Bad guy?" Yeah, like yes, that's exactly how I thought it was going to happen. So I was happy with that.
Yeah. I guess I'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now comes the difficult part.
The biggest con. Why do we need a close up of Venom toes? I don't think we needed that in the sand.
Yeah, like, I did that specifically for me, because I hate him having toes, and they were like, I want to feel my toes on the sand, and they had a big old focus on it.
Big close up, like your toes wiggling.
How hard is it to do boot feet?
Oh.
I don't know.
Like at the very least, do
See,
like
my
claw
problem is
feet like Carnage has, not toes.
yeah, my problem
Those
with
are
those is that they're
passable.
like too spread out. They look like well, I don't know, like monkey feet because they're like so spread out. Like if they were more
feet, boot,
like
Compact.
uniform, sure, but they're like ugh, they're nasty. I don't like them.
Nope.
I don't like them. I don't like them. Anyway.
All
Venom
right.
Island was not a direction I expected it to go. That
Yeah.
really caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to also preface everything I'm going to say about what I dislike about this and say that even though I'll agree that Let There Be Carnage is a marked improvement over the first movie, its flaws, for me at least, as a Venom fan, its flaws are much more egregious than the first films.
So
I
you
agree
think
big
as a
time.
film it's better, but as an adaptation it's worse, is what you're saying.
Yes.
That's fair.
All right. And
I don't know, because
yes.
I think the accuracy of Cletus just trumps all of that stuff personally.
for you,
But yeah, for me,
Yeah,
because
well,
I think they did Carnage
they got
pretty well,
on one
except for a
hand,
few things.
well, I
But
feel like
Venom-
almost
they
like
got Cletus
before
well,
we
but not Carnage.
before we like list all our cons, I think we should just all as a group discuss the con of Carnage, because that feels like the
Mhm.
elephant in the room to me. That I think we all
That's
can
the
agree
biggest one.
that this is a very inaccurate Carnage. Like the
I
relationship
agree.
he
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
with Cletus
Um,
is not good.
yeah,
Carnage's
it's
whole
hard.
thing is that he's the perfect Bond, yet they beat him by saying
Because-
that he's not symbiotic.
Yeah, he's
Like,
not.
really?
Yeah.
And this goes into a thing with me on having an issue with Eddie and Venom's relationship. But like I guess I'll talk about that later. But Carnage, his fight scenes are amazing. I warmed up to his design, but I wasn't happy with his voice and his personality.
Yeah.
And the
They
overall
literally made
execution,
him. Yeah,
Why is he saying father? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
It's supposed to be daddy.
Yeah, they literally just made him a red riot in the personality trait.
Yeah, it's just generic
I guess
evil
they were-
symbiote, basically.
Yeah. So I guess they were too
Carnage
scared.
deserves better.
Yeah. So I guess they were too scared to make him, more like I don't know, silly like he is in the comics. Like, he like sounds more respectful when he says father. He doesn't say, "All right, daddy, let's go do this." Ah.
Right. All right. So I'll say.
That's
Man.
so bizarre to me. I thought they would have embraced that because the goofiness is what a lot of people loved. So that's what
That's one thing. That's one thing I'll say for Sony is that they probably felt like, all right, I think one silly symbiote is enough for this movie.
I mean, I guess, and like him being taller than Venom is. I mean, I understand they wanted to have it as
Big bad.
he's taller, so that means he's stronger. But you could have easily
Big
had
red
him be
bad
smaller
guy.
and just be this tiny little mean little dude.
I don't understand why they need him to grow to 20 feet tall at the end for no reason.
I don't know.
like taking over the entire church, which was a cool visual. I did like that.
Didn't he grow slightly just because he bit off the head of the?
That's it. It just he said power up.
Yeah, like he even says like power up.
Power up.
Yeah, he goes like power
and
up.
then apparently
like,
that just eating one dude's head is apparently enough to do all that. Like again, for no reason other than that he's a red one, which whatever that means, which might be a reference to the old script.
A red one.
He's a red one, apparently powerful symbiote. Venom's got powerful kid, I guess.
And they don't even go into the father-son, whole thing either. Like he just says, "I gotta kill the one that births me." They don't even like.
It's just briefly. It's like he just said he just referred to Venom as father. So it's like, there you go. There's the reference. That's it.
Why does he kill him for? We don't understand how he is.
They sort of explain during the drive, and which I will say I actually liked how he just randomly kills that truck driver and just throws him off.
I love that. That is Carnage right there.
Yeah, but during that drive, I think he says like we have to stop him because he's the only one who can stop us.
Which makes sense.
So, which is fair, but
right.
But
it just feels like they were too scared to make Carnage jokey, I guess. And so I did like how like the stakes weren't that high, like, so it wasn't like the first movie where like, oh no, like Riot's gonna go off and he's gonna bring them back and they're gonna kill the world. the stakes are pretty small, which I liked.
Just one crazy killer.
And not to mention, they kind of at the end, they kind of ripped off a little bit of Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know if you guys know the scenes in particular that I'm referencing.
Are you talking about the Gwen Stacy
falling
scene?
down?
Yeah,
snap.
when Anne is holding on to, I don't know if it's a rope or the piece of the symbiote. So I'm like, oh my god, that's like directly from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
And
no,
then when-
I did have a moment in theater. I was like, no, they're not going to pull a Gwen Stacy on Anne.
I want to see a little
I'm
symbiote
like-
hand reach out of the tendril.
I feel like
And then- then they copied a Homecoming when Venom is like, oh, I can't move, I'm on this boulder. It's like they're trying to like copy the scene where Peter's trying to, he can't be strong
the
enough, so
rubble.
he has to push.
This be my
It's like,
destiny.
oh no. Yeah.
Well, that's just a comic reference, because they did that again in Mike Costa's run.
Mhm. Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
The Craven.
Yeah, they did.
It's just a comic reference. It's fine, but there's a big issue with him and Venom. I want to talk about, but we're still on Carnage now.
Yeah,
so,
let's
yeah.
finish
so-
off Carnage first.
So, with going back to what the one thing I don't like about Carnage is Woody's performance as the voice of Carnage, because I absolutely could not tell that was Woody Harrelson voicing
Me neither.
Carnage.
Like
I
I
had
said,
to-
generic
is that a
evil
bad
symbiote
thing?
voice.
Is
I
that
don't
a
know
bad
what him-
thing, though?
I feel like that was a bad thing because it would have made the connection between the bond between Cletus and Eddie much stronger for me if
Mhm.
Carnage sounded like Cletus. And it wasn't like you pointed out, it was not a great performance either, because that was definitely just a generic evil symbiote. That was not Carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It wasn't.
and it's funny that you said, Aaron, that the stakes were very low. For me, the fact that the only reason Eddie and Venom won against Cletus and Carnage was because apparently Carnage and Cletus didn't have a perfect symbiosis. For me, that lowered the stakes for Eddie and Venom significantly, because their whole dynamic in the comics is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Where Cletus and Carnage have the perfect bond, and that's what makes them so dangerous.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You can't even draw the line between them. Carnage always goes by I. It's like you can't tell if it's a symbiote or Cletus speaking.
And-
but at
and
the
there
same
were
time, it
times
doesn't
in the-
matter. They're the same.
And at times in the movie they were like kind of, I don't know if I missed it, but I think they were kind of like bickering to one another. It's like they weren't on the same page. It's like, oh, you better tell your girlfriend to
Shut her
shut her
mouth.
mouth or I'll gonna kill her. And it's like, don't touch my. I'm like, what?
I mean, they're just trying to make him more sympathetic, which is fine, but I don't,
Carnage should be sympathetic, not because of how he comes off. It's like you see how he got there, but he should also be an irredeemable evil at the same time. Like he's beyond redemption. It's like,
well,
it's sad that it
how
happened
it's said
to
in the
him.
movie, like people love serial killers. So if you give him just a little bit of like a sparkle light that I can fix him, then that makes people like him better. So
True, yeah.
Do we want to talk about the last scene with Cletus Carnage and the thing we didn't like about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
My friend Eddie.
Yeah, so I liked all the stuff they did with him, except at the very end, right before he gets killed, he says, "I just wanted you to be my friend."
And honestly, Venom capped it off perfectly there.
He did
With the fuck this guy and bite his head off.
Pretty
He's
good
like,
we got the one fuck.
And
we got the one F-bomb, yep.
And I didn't like how he had to say that his parents abused him. I don't think.
Yeah, again, just trying to gain.
I think that was a little bit too much.
Mhm.
He should just be evil just for the sake of being evil, and he wants family. I don't think they had to say.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's as great as Woody Harrelson's performance as Cletus Cassidy was. I feel like the writing for Cletus Cassidy was a bit off because you didn't get the sense that he was a serial killer and what his real motivations were. Like, yeah, he you know.
Well, he just walks into a gas station and just curb stomps the dude. I mean, that's pretty.
That was hilarious.
Should we give Tyler? Tyler,
but,
what did you think about the computer scene? We got to know your opinion on that.
Yeah, okay.
Carnage on the laptop.
Okay, here. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I momentarily forgot about it because here's the thing. That is a comic reference. Obviously, we all know with Cletus hacking into
some of them internet.
I think that is one of the dumbest things, nonsense in the comics. That, like, comics do a lot of dumb things, but that is some of the most nonsensical things I've ever seen of Carnage hacking into the Ethernet cables and just somehow just getting into the internet. But the fact that they did it in the movie, I think, is amazing. They pulled this stupid shit from the comics. They're like, we're doing it. He's gonna hack. The screen turns red when he plugs his tendrils into the USBs, and he's just gonna hack into the FBI somehow. Just the fact that they did that,
like the alarm code in like 2 seconds.
This is
and the Carnage has just been born like 20 minutes ago.
You got any internet?
You got any internet?
So this entire movie. This entire movie was just one big fuck it. We're just gonna do it because that's really what it was.
We're gonna do it. Eating like chickens. Like we gonna do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the one last thing I will say, like, that was disappointing for me for both Cletus and Carnage is, again, it's just the ending scene. The way how, like, I was kind of hoping Eddie was just gonna let him go and face, like, go through the whole death penalty, go back to prison. But then, obviously, again, I didn't mind the F-bomb, but it was just unexpected. I'm like, wait, so you're gonna kill off Cletus just like that? And then, of course, Venom he eats Carnage because that happened in the comics. But I'm like, oh, so this means we're never gonna see him again. I'm like, oh,
it was. They left Cletus alive. They could have said pulled a maximum Carnage where it's still in his blood. And
so for me, like, Sony always kills off the villains, but it's like, you don't have any other big villains for Venom, so what are you going to do? I mean,
Toxin?
If you just no, but I'm saying, like, if you just kept Woody alive, you could just use an excuse later, and you could use it as a moment of growth for Venom, I guess. And I don't always have to eat people, but again, it's Carnage. So, but I mean, I understand why they had to kill him, but they should just find a way not to, because
I feel like
I mean, I think that's the point of finality for me is they killed off Carnage and him. So
the fact that he bit his head off is pretty final to me. I don't know. I really can't see them bringing him back.
No. That's something we'll discuss in the last segment of our podcast. We were discussing the future things, but I feel like there is an opportunity for.
I agree.
There's no back now.
I feel there's two ways they could do it.
Maybe not Woody Harrelson coming back, but there is a possibility.
But if he already voiced Carnage, then we're not going to have, Carnage back either. I mean, I assume, I guess.
Speaking of voicing Carnage, I just want to say, I know we sort of moved on from that topic, but I did kind of wish we got to hear more from Carnage. Even though you guys didn't love his voice, I think he only gets like 6 lines as Carnage. Otherwise, he's just roaring the entire time. Because there's even like one scene when he's in the mist tornado, whatever you want to call it, the stupid thing. He does like a line at the Warden that I kind of like, oh, any last words, Warden? And I kind of wish that was Carnage saying that. It's when he specifically takes his head out of the symbiote to say that, and I wish the symbiote had just said that, as Cletus, them together saying that.
I don't like in the movies how it's like the hosts can't speak in symbiote form, like in the comics. It's only it really undermines the significance of the host. Like they're just almost they're just inside them, not really doing much, which is a shame.
So is that pretty much what we have to say about Carnage?
Movie rules.
I feel like
anything. I like his design. I think we said that already. I already have the $5 million fucking Hot Toys already ordered, and that's not going out for like 2 more years.
Your wallet.
I like that he's in Fortnite. That's pretty cool.
Tap on the hater.
Bruh.
Yeah, I guess that's it for Carnage.
So
did say that he would be interested in coming back as Cletus, but that could just be a marketing thing. So who knows?
Yeah. So to move on, this is going to be my biggest gripe for the entire movie, and it's the fact that Eddie has this lack of progression into a true anti-hero in this movie.
So you agree with me? Thank you. Okay.
Yes. So he is entirely selfish throughout this entire
And he's
entire film,
useless the entire movie. He does nothing.
And still a dumbass too. It's like that line from the first movie of for such a smart guy you're a dumb, you're a real dumbass. That still fucking echoes here. It's like, oh my god, dude, you're his whole journalism. Okay, so my main problem with it is that
he does nothing.
Well, no, not just that he does nothing.
You're just complaining about he's got zero character progression throughout this movie.
Yeah, so here's my theory of why he has no character progression in this movie.
The writing
because he still has his career. In the comics, he's out of his career when he becomes Venom. He's like, I can't get a job anywhere as a writer or anything. So he's hit rock bottom, and now the only thing for him is to be Venom, this anti-hero, and that's how he progresses. Whereas here, he still has this little rock, and he's desperately trying to hold on to that, and that's why it's keeping him from becoming an actual protagonist here.
But he hasn't done a good job of journalizing that whole movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever I just said.
Venom was the more journalistic one.
Yeah.
He got the carvings. He figured out the bodies.
Yeah, I know Aaron's been dying to get to this. This is his biggest complaint. So
yes, Eddie did absolutely nothing the entire film. He, like, the one thing he did was he found like the orphanage they were at, but that doesn't amount to anything because they already come by and they escape. Eddie does absolutely nothing this entire film. You should have had him see his wall at the start, and then he finds the bodies without the help of Venom.
Yeah, maybe Venom just retraces the pictures for him. Like, what do you see in these, Eddie? Like,
right, but Eddie does absolutely nothing. There is no reason for him to be there or Venom to be with him besides the fact that they have the same, like DNA match or whatever. Like, if they didn't match, Venom would have been gone like years ago or like months ago or like whatever.
And that's
there's no reason for them to stay there. There was no reason for them to stay together, and they never give you that reason besides, oh, we're a match, so we have to stay together.
Yeah. So, and that kind of plays into my next criticism for him is that it felt to me like he resigned himself to his fate at the end. He's like, okay, we're Venom. I'm now on the run. I'm a fugitive. And, even though they had that cute little talk at the end, or like, oh, you love me and all that, blah, blah, to me, he felt dead inside. He's like, shit, this is my life now.
That's kind of growth, because at the start of the movie, he was saying, like you were saying, he was selfish, but at the end, he kind of understands the point of view of like the symbiote. So, hey, we got to do this together. So let's just leave. So he kind of understands, Venom now, but again, he didn't do anything the entire movie, except just be a match for Venom, because Venom does everything. So.
Yep. And then also he rejects closure with Anne. Like, there was that little part at the end of the first movie where he was kind of discussing, oh, what was that kiss all about and everything. It's like, okay, he is still in love with Anne and everything, but she's like, even though, okay, so I think the only reason she was, I was having a hard time with this movie with him and Anne. Why did she contact him to let him know that she was getting married?
She's just being nice. That's a thing you do.
That is a thing.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I understand. Okay, I understand that, but the fact that
and I was going to say, because then in this movie we actually see him almost commit suicide in the
or like considering it, like with like the
and
so
Venom
it's
stops
like,
him from doing it.
And even in the end of this movie, when he and Anne and Dan and everyone, they have to part ways and everything, I felt like he was still clinging on to her, but
He absolutely
she's
is.
like, dude, I'm going off to she's going off to live with Dan. She's marrying Dan. She loves him. It's like,
Yeah, but she had that
fucking
line
let
about
go.
that. She had that line where she's like, "Never do that symbiote thing with me again." Well, maybe, I don't know. It was fun. So she wants the symbiote, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves the symbiote. Yes, she loves the Venom and everything, but it's like, dude, get the message, Eddie. She's over you.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's hard to break up with someone and just accept it, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know.
Like I said, Eddie
I
has
just
zero
wish-
progression. He's still clinging on to
Yeah.
her the entire time.
I just
Yeah.
wish he did something because he didn't do anything.
And he's
And I
still
want
living in
someone to
that
argue with me
broke
that he
ass
did 'cause he
apartment.
didn't. Yeah.
So Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, great performance, fantastic. He can nail it.
Except
It's
I feel like his accent
writing.
changed from the first movie.
Yeah.
It's just Eddie Brock's writing is just it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that can be said for a lot of the movie, even with Woody Harrelson's Cletus. The performing was well, but the actors were pretty good, but they weren't given the best to work with necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to go. I've got a pretty big con that I want to get to. My biggest con for the movie,
Sure.
personally. So it's specific. We talked about the relationship with Carnage and whatnot, but my biggest con is Eddie's relationship with Venom, and not just the fact that, here's the thing. I enjoyed the first movie, even though I still consider the first movie a bad movie objectively. I still enjoyed myself in the first movie, and I think a big part of that was the fact that it was the relationship between Eddie and the symbiote, where you have Tom Hardy hamming it up as Eddie, like freaking out about being attached to this alien, and then you have the symbiote sort of bickering with him and trying to control him, and eventually they're coming to like him. But then in this movie, the dynamic is completely changed, and it's no longer like symbiote trying to eventually coming around to him. It's this goofy symbiote with Eddie sort of like he's just over it. He's like, ugh, this Tom Hardy doesn't ham it up at all anymore. He's just like you said. He's just whatever. He's just like dead inside. It's just
So
okay. I'll let you.
I don't know about you guys. But this movie felt like a departure from the first movie in that it felt like a completely different movie. From how Eddie has been acting and everything to even the score, like completely different kind of sound to this thing than the first movie. And then even the circumstances of Eddie meeting up with Cleese Cassidy. You saw the singer at the end of the first movie, him meeting up with Cleese Cassidy, and then you look at how it's happening in this movie, and he's a lot more nervous about meeting up with Cleese Cassidy in this movie, whereas in the last one he was just like, "Oh, this is like the scoop of a lifetime" and all that. Ooh, this is all cool and stuff.
I don't think that's a big deal, honestly. Because I thought it was better.
I feel like you could
points like that.
I feel like you could completely cut out the stinger at the end of the first movie and just start with this movie, and it would be a vast improvement for me.
Sure, but sure, but so another thing, I kind of want to, backtrack to was that Eddie didn't have a chance to shine at all. Like even during the final fight, he still got his ass beat. Like when they were like the symbiotes were being like weakened, and like Cletus still like beat him up. Like he didn't even get a punch in.
At least in the first movie, he got a punch in on Drake. Like he did it like a Superman punch.
Yeah, but he just didn't have any chance to shine, and I don't understand why. I guess it's because they want to focus more on Venom as a character, because that's the haha funny one that like sells.
Yeah, but, and again, I don't know. It's just part of my thing where I don't really like the goofy direction. Like, here's the thing: I like Goofy Venom, but Goofy Venom in the comics is great. But this is not that. This is like, oh, look at the crazy, wacky things Venom's doing. Oh, he's going to a rave, even though again, Venom should not be going to a rave. Raves are very loud. Yeah, so I don't know why he's doing that, but it's in general like, look, he's like the whole thing with Venom is that like they want to go with the eating brains thing. Like Venom needs his brain, he's getting pissed that he's not letting him eat brains. And then when he goes on his own, he never even attempts to do that. He's just like, I want to go just party with people, and it's what?
Yeah,
It doesn't
Yeah,
line
I
up at
mean,
all.
I suppose he was still thinking about the rules that Eddie wanted him to follow by because he,
Yeah, but
like
he
he even
doesn't go
says
find
at
any
the end,
bad guys. He
I
just
wish.
decides to walk around with people.
I guess, but he even says, I wish Eddie was here. So I guess he was just having, like a hissy fit and like just wanted to be out for a little bit because he understands all the rules that Eddie sets in
well,
place for him. But
if
but I see what you're saying though.
if
I
I
don't
may,
have,
so
yeah, yeah.
sorry, yeah, no, I was gonna say, so yeah, my biggest complaint is like, yeah, like during the movie there was a lot of corniness that really shouldn't have been in there because
There's
there was a lot of cringy
I was
scenes.
groaning a lot, like quietly.
But
Yeah.
but some of the stuff they portrayed was somewhat it was accurate because again it's like Venom and Eddie, we've seen it time and time again in the comics. They always fight and they always separate, and I know that's like a huge eye roll, but in here in the movie it's just like they fight. Venom does his own thing. He leaves Eddie, and he's host hopping, and I'm like, and then the rave party thing. It's like people were making it like a big deal, like, oh my god, Venom, he's coming out. It's like, no, it was just like it was just a Halloween party, and and it's like that party is loud. He wouldn't be able to handle the loud sound of the party, but like I thought it was wholesome. So yeah.
It was fun
I don't
seeing him
think there's
have fun,
anything-
and he's like, "Thank you," but it's like it wasn't really an important scene. You could probably cut it out, and not too much would change.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
have any issues with the rave scene. I don't have any issues with Venom trying to be fun. My thing has always been like, like even with the comics, just let Eddie just have a chance to shine and like do his own thing. And Eddie didn't shine at all in this movie. He was literally just there just so they can bond because they're genetically a perfect match. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't be together. And that's why at the end, when they do come together, they only say, "Oh, we can only beat him because we have like because we have like a strong bond because we're like genetically matched, like not because we're friends or we love each other. It's we can beat him just because we're a better match," which is,
I think the problems with Eddie not doing anything would be helped tremendously if they did the comic approach of the fights, whereas like it's not just the symbiote piloting Eddie, it's just both of them acting as one. And whenever he said, and they talk to Carnage as they talk to him as like a singular Venom. I feel like that would help a lot with Eddie doing stuff. Now he just feels like a husk. Like you said, he's there just because he's compatible.
Which what I was kind of hoping with, because at the end of the first movie they say we are Venom. Like they said that together, but they still kept them separate. And like I said, Eddie didn't do much of anything. So that, and I don't know.
And then the second thing I wanted to bring up about like one of my biggest cons was Carnage as a whole, because again, Sony, they just couldn't go with the R rating. They had to keep it PG-13 because again, I just felt like Carnage was on a leash. It's like every time he killed, it was like off screen. You didn't see much blood. All the head decapitation was done like fade away. You could clearly see it, right? And it's just like fine. I wish it was R rated, but yeah, I know.
Right.
For me, the main problems with Carnage isn't necessarily the whole gore thing. It's about his bond with Cletus not being the one-for-one, both blood and mind. But also, I would have loved to see more of his chaotic philosophy introduced. Like the whole, like we don't see why he kills. Like you say he wants family, but we should have gotten the whole, like Carnage is. He believes that the whole life is meaningless. Chaos sets you free. You can do whatever you want because you can. And we didn't get to see any of that, which really disappointed me.
That's
a huge part of Carnage's character.
Right.
That's my criticism earlier too.
Yeah. And he sort of implied that he killed all these people for a reason, because he told Eddie he never asked the other side of the story. So are we supposed to think he killed all of these people because they did something bad to him? Right? I mean, that's the question I walked out with. Right?
I just took that as just because I was abused. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I suppose.
I could let that pass for the first few victims, like the mom, dad, the dog. But for his rest of his killing career, no. Just
Well, that's true because we did see him just kill like a random gas station
that is
worker
true.
for no reason.
So,
So that's true.
I am willing to think it's just for the early kills, which I can give that a pass.
Yeah. They really should have, like, going back to Eddie Brock and like Venom, they should have distinctly discussed their genetic match and their, I don't know, like, relationship match. Because if you had Carnage and like Woody Harrelson, like, if they were like a superior genetic match, but they weren't a good match, like, relationship wise, like we saw them fighting, that could have been a better point of discussion with them, saying, hey, they're fighting like, like we were fighting, but like we get along better now, so that's why we can beat them now. But I don't know. Like I said, I just wish Eddie did something except just exist. But
and then this is something that I don't even know if this is the case, or it's just I don't know if it's just the IMAX theater I was in, or it sounded to me like Venom's voice is way different, and I didn't like it nearly as much. Like for in the first movie, because I just watched it just before I watched Venom 2, and it's like this low growl, and I really liked Venom's voice in the first movie. I thought it was pretty great. And then
Didn't the
I feel
original
like
voice actor pass away?
I wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't sure if that was the case.
I am pretty sure. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the person we're like talking about like only helped Tom Hardy voice Venom through like coaching and things like that. I don't know if he actually did the voice because I'm pretty sure it was still Hardy the whole time, but I'm not sure either.
But yeah, but anyway, I think in whatever they did to his voice in the second movie, I don't like it as much, and it kind of annoyed me a bit because I really liked his voice in the first movie, and then I don't know if he's just doing a different inflection, but it was like oh yeah instead, and it's not that low growl anymore. And
I would chalk it up to the theater because like we talked about this the other day, but you said you didn't even notice the difference with the trailers.
Well,
so
yeah,
I mean,
in the trailer I didn't, because it sounded similar in the trailer, but then in the actual movie it sounded different. So maybe it's just
maybe it's just the IMAX or something, but but I will say like
his voice was similar.
Yeah, like I will say though, like watching a lot of it, there was a lot of stuff I could not understand, and that's kind of the course for Tom Hardy, with like Bane and like stuff like that. But it was probably just the theater setting.
Yeah. So another point, I feel like I'll probably be the odd man out here with this thing that I disagree or disliked about the film, but I did not like Dan in this film, Dr. Dan. I felt like
I thought Dan was fine.
I feel like
he helped save
I feel like
Dan.
No, he was cooler in the first film, but in this one he was a bit lame.
He had to remind the audience of fire and sound for the 5th time in a row.
And and he had to seem like weaker, so you got the point that Venom still has a chance with Anne or whatever, right? But I had folks like audibly like like gasp and freak out when it when it looked like Dan was going to die in the movie.
Yeah,
So,
I had a
like
moment there
Dan,
too. I was like, oh my god, don't kill Dan. Even though I wasn't enjoying him at that point, I was like, just don't kill him.
Honestly,
I just found like he came there out of nowhere. Didn't you guys see that random? Like it felt random, like he just showed up out of nowhere at the final church fight. So
like Dan saves the day. It's all good.
Well, he knew where they were, so
yeah. And it wasn't as silly as the Anne and him holding hands to like leak to like loop the symbiote back to Eddie. Like that was more stupid, but So can I talk about Venom's powers now?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So
we're almost done with cons here, aren't we? I feel like we've talked about most of it.
Yeah. So the one thing, well, there was a lot of things, but I was also pretty disappointed. Venom didn't change his like design at all, which is pretty weird for Sony because Sony loves to sell you new suits and looks for toys.
It's like every
Spider-Man
other
already
company.
has like 6 suits already, right? But I was pretty disappointed that they didn't change the design up like at least a little. And I was pretty disappointed he didn't have any new abilities, because Venom doesn't do anything, fighting wise except punch and kick maybe a few times. Like in the first one, you had the whole like the car chase scene where he's
Getting
zipping
creative.
on the
Slide.
road and he's making like shields, but he didn't do anything like that. Like I was hoping, the Hot Toys has him have like a scythe, and then it also has like those little jaw mouth things, and then the like the Cosby also has the jaw mouth things. So I was hoping they would say, "Oh, our like bond is stronger now, so we can use these abilities that like Riot used or whatever," or just say, "Hey, like I learned how to do this from Riot." But Venom didn't have any new powers or abilities. He just punched and kicked, and he
It was just brute strength. That's it.
bit off heads. Yeah, So
I have a feeling he might get those after consuming Carnage. Like, since those were a lot of those abilities are ones Carnage has, so now that he consumed
makes
Carnage,
sense.
he might be stronger.
yeah,
But
that
how
makes sense.
did Carnage? Wait, but how did Carnage have those abilities?
Because he's red.
He's a red one.
one. That's why.
There's a red one.
It's a chicken or the egg thing for me. It's like, well, if Carnage is Venom's son, and where did he get those powers
Look,
from?
he's gonna cross over with Spider-Man. He's gonna start web slinging. So
He's gonna get that spider logo, baby.
he better get that logo.
About Spider-Man, I'm kind of
I hope to
worried
God
now
that's the
that
classic symbol. It's not like a spread out
Give
one.
me the big fat spider. Give me the big thick leg.
comic
will-
spider legs
I
together.
will do something very bad if it's like a Flash Thompson like looking
Over the
look where he has
shoulders.
like toes and he has like the spread out symbol. I would do something very bad if that happens.
Very bad.
I
I
like
don't know what
that.
one is.
Ooh.
But yeah, to our listeners
I will
out there, the big
shred my
spoiler, the big spoiler: Venom is now in the MCU. Woo! Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
Transitioning over to our last convo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. I have one more
One more con.
point. One
One
more
more?
con.
Okay.
And this does have to do with the whole MCU thing now, but
Okay.
it's the ambiguity of Pat Mulligan's fate, both
Mhm.
in what he becomes and how the MCU merge will affect his future appearances. Because as you know, as we comic fans know, he is supposed to become Toxin, which is the spawn of Carnage, but the way he apparently powers up at the end of this movie kind of suggests that it's not exactly symbiote origin, even though I said, his eyes right before they glow had that little symbiote transition thing going on. But like, where the hell did he get the symbiote from? But whatever. But also, it's just, even though we got that tease and everything, this whole MCU thing now kind of shakes that up. I was like, well, did Venom get transferred into the MCU just himself? Like, what happened
It's definitely
to the
just
whole?
Venom.
Probably.
So it's like,
Just adding
what happened to the
Venom,
Venomverse?
Well, see, I'm assuming, like, I guess we're just gonna jump into the future talk here, and just I'm assuming that at the end of No Way Home, after he has or not even No Way Home, just even a future, because I feel like the Venom thing, I feel like it won't be in No Way Home. I feel like there might be a post-credit scene in No Way Home that says Venom's here too now, and then we'll get a Venom or Spider-Man versus Venom movie, and then. But so then I feel like at the end of that, Venom might get teleported back home with the spider.
Yeah.
So that would be, I think, make the most logical sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they have, like you said, you have Toxin set up, you have Anne still there, you have all these characters. I don't think they're just going to have Venom in the MCU from now on. I think he's just going to be go back to his universe at the end
like a movie.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have his venture with Spider-Man and send him back.
I was severely hoping that, like we got some like leaks of what the end was, and like folks saying there's a bright flash or he's like transported. I was really hoping the TV would just turn on and we understand that he's been in the MCU the whole time. They just didn't say it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm fine with what I got.
Now,
what I'm thinking, right? So, but it also brings up the point: why would he be transported if he's not Spider-Man? Because it seems like they're transporting only universes that have Spider-Man. Well, unless there's a Spider-Man in like his universe.
It feels like okay.
Well, hold on. So I'm thinking what's going to happen is that at the end of like No Way Home, they all of the Spideys go back home because they fix the spell or whatever, right? But Venom is trapped there because maybe the Spider-Man from his universe is dead or never became Spider-Man, so he can't exactly go back.
Or he's the Spider Totem.
Right, which leads into the conflict with Peter saying, "Hey, like we saw you do this spell or whatever, so like why aren't we home yet?" So they're fighting each other, and it's going to be called "Honey, I'm home," or "Honey, we're home."
But I was going to say, because there is a lot of rumors going around, because we don't know exactly if it was Doctor Strange, that huge light that caught when he cast the spell. So we don't know if that moment is exactly for No Way Home. But the thing is that I paid close attention to the whole teleport scene. If you guys noticed, like the room changed, but it kind of almost reflected like from WandaVision, because when the house changed and it started glitching, it kind of looks similar. So I don't know if it was either Doctor Strange or Wanda.
It's got to be
Wanda's powers.
It's Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
If it was Wanda, it would have been all red.
But again, it also brings up the point: then why was Venom brought back to the past? Because when he turns on the TV, he's seeing the news that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, which is
Sony. They don't give a shit.
No.
They just like
no. So my theory there is because he's in another country and probably their news cycle is a little bit behind.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure.
Well, it was a beach resort he was at anyway.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, but speaking of beaches, I did like the ending shot, because that was very like they were clearly homaging Ron Lim's artwork, which I liked. That was pretty cute.
I was a surprise, but it was a welcome one. I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anything else we want?
So talking about we're in now in the part where we're talking about predictions of the future, or what we're hoping to see. What I'm thinking is first I'm going to talk about Venom, then we're going to talk about Carnage, because I still feel like there's hope for Carnage.
Yeah, I have some ideas for Carnage.
Yeah, so with Venom, what I'm thinking is that my main fear right now with Venom is that we know that Tom Hardy is currently contracted for 3 film appearances as Eddie Brock / Venom. We've had 2 so far with Venom 1 and Venom 2, and now we have this thing with him coming into the MCU. So if he does have an appearance, because remember, with No Way Home, we're supposedly getting the Sinister Six, but we only really speculate 5 members right now. We have Sandman, we have Electro, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Lizard, and there's still a 6th member who's not there yet, and that could be Venom.
It's not gonna be Venom.
I've heard that it's supposed to be Rhino.
It's not gonna be Venom.
But that's my concern, is that if he's supposed to be crossing over into the MCU now, and he's going to make an appearance in an MCU movie, that's going to count as Tom's 3rd and final appearance. So what does that? What would that say about the 3rd?
No,
movie?
he was the co-writer. Like, I don't think he's just gonna jump up and leave. I don't think.
I don't know, but that's my concern there. Then when it comes to Carnage, the reason I say there's some hope is because even though it did feel kind of final with Venom biting off Cletus's head and then eating Carnage symbiote, the fact that now we're being introduced to the multiverse thing, it could be that Cletus Cassidy is still alive in the MCU, and it's also opening up an opportunity if we're not going to get Woody Harrelson again, we can get a different actor as Cletus Cassidy. And this would be a completely new kind of Cletus Cassidy's, maybe something a bit more, a bit closer to comics Cassidy.
R-rated.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, because right now it's still kind of nebulous in my head here, but the way I'm imagining it is Shriek's fate at the end of this movie is a bit questionable because we see the bell fall on top of her, but she could have easily
She's
survived
effing dead.
I think she's dead.
The
She's
middle
dead.
of it was removed, so it could have fell around her. I feel like they're going to leave it open, so if they want to bring her back, they can. But they can also say she's dead.
So that's kind of playing into my whole theory about this alternate Carnage, where Carnage is currently absorbed into the Venom symbiote, but it could rebel and try to get back out, and it'll seek out Cletus Cassidy again and find this new Cassidy, and this new Cassidy is a completely different kind of character in that he's more like comic Cassidy, where he's a one-man show.
More crazy, more deadly.
Yeah, much more crazy. He won't abide by the Carnage symbiote's personality and say, "Hey, no, I'm the one driving here. This is all my stuff." And if Shriek is still alive, we can have a bit of finality to this new Carnage and say, have her show up and say, "Hey, it's my darling," or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, cool, I have a group here, whatever," but he's not attached to her.
I don't know.
Like in the comics,
Maximum
he's not really
Carnage.
attached.
I have no. Yeah. Yes, that's the thing that confused me too, because like during the Amazing Spider-Man, they were going to set up Maximum Carnage. Like they were going to do all those movies, like Spider-Man 2099 movie. They're going to do a Black Cat movie. They're going to do a Venom movie, and they were going to come together to do Maximum Carnage. I guess they just don't want to do that shit now, which is kind of weird to me.
I have an idea as to how Cletus might still be alive, or just two ways to bring him back almost.
Sure.
My first one is that even though we don't get confirmation that it's a blood bond, Carnage would often form holes in his body and stuff. And to me, I feel like they can just easily reveal that it's the blood bond. And maybe, like in the comics, Carnage would heal from getting his head shot off or getting it cut off. So I think maybe the police could find Cletus with his head still attached because the symbiote in his blood might have restored it. We don't see that, so they can probably haul him off to Ravencroft. They assume the symbiote's dead because they didn't see Eddie bite his head off, so they figured he just left him. And then we get the Maximum Carnage breakout scene. He breaks out with Shriek, and then we can get, Maximum Carnage. My second idea was a different timeline because Venom beat Carnage by Carnage not being true symbiosis. But in this timeline, Carnage is true symbiosis, so he would kill his world's Venom and whatnot. But he gets transported to the main Venomverse. He meets up with Shriek again, and then Maximum Carnage.
Well, so here's a third idea. They should have gave Woody more money.
True, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I would like
the multiverse open, right?
Yeah.
So,
or the MCU
I'm not surprised if they killed him off because Sony loves to kill off their bad guys, but it seems so weird after they advertised this whole thing as a Versus movie. They had all these Carnage merchandise, all this Venom merchandise, and they just kill them off. I don't know.
It definitely wasn't a smart.
It seems
killing
weird.
Off Carnage was the one of the worst things they could have done.
Okay, so who wants?
Weird, just to kill him off when you could have easily just known you weren't going to write him again, but just leave him alive. So then fans are always thinking, when are they going to bring Carnage back? Right?
Yeah. So who wants to predict that Venom 3 is going to be called Venom Lethal Protector?
I would like that.
I hope so.
I could possibly also see Venom versus Spider-Man or something if they really want to do the whole versus thing.
Well, we know the next movie is going to have to be the Spider-Man and Venom one, right? And that has to be we're home or something like that because all these movies have to use the fucking home thing, right? But I just don't know if Venom goes back to his universe. I don't even know what they're going to do because he already killed off his main.
Oh, here you go.
Competition bad guy.
How about this? Spider-Man Home Advantage.
Yes.
I'm really sick and tired of the home title.
on this stupid thing.
The home title has to go now. It has to go.
Yes.
It's not gonna go.
The home trilogy. Wrap it up.
I don't know because I would like them to do some like unique bad guys, like do like Jack-o'-lantern or like something, but it sounds like they just want to keep doing symbiotes because people like symbiotes. But I want more unique villains.
I
did have a moment of dread. I did have a moment of dread in that mid-credit scene because they were talking about the symbiotes hive mind history and everything. I'm like, oh crap, and
God
the fact that they already pulled Donny Cates' whole Cletus Cassidy was dead at birth or whatever, like shit, they're gonna go with no. I'm like, no, please don't do that. So they could be probably hinting at that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm definitely glad they didn't go in that direction.
But again, Tom Hardy and Andy Serkis, they said they loved the name Grendel. They thought it was a really cool name. So who knows?
Now, when I listen, when I listened to that thing, it was funny because when they heard the name Grendel, I think they misheard it and they heard Grundle, which is something completely different. And so that's why they were laughing, like, "Oh my god, Grundle!" It's like, oh, that's an awesome name. We gotta get that. Kind of like a Swedish null thing.
But yeah, no. As for me, like for the future for Venom, like again, I'm really happy now that he isn't finally in the MCU. I think it's been long overdue for a proper Spider-Man versus Venom fight. Because ever since Spider-Man 3, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But I'm really looking forward to where Venom's going to show up in the MCU. So yeah, really excited.
Yeah. All right. I feel like that's a good place to put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Wait, I think we should
have some overall
rating.
Like, I don't know if I want to give a specific rating. Even I want to sum up my overall thoughts.
Tricky.
So here's the thing for me, because I feel like I can't say if I enjoyed this movie that much, because like I said, the main reason I liked the first one was because of Tom Hardy and hamming it up and the symbiote relationship, and for me that wasn't there this movie. So like I didn't hate it. I don't even know if I'd go so far as to say I disliked it. But this movie,
you're in the middle.
I would say this is like on the same tier as like the bottom of the MCU is like a Thor 2. Like I don't dislike Thor 2. There are moments of Thor 2 that I do like, but overall it's just meh. It's sort of forgettable for me. Even with it involving some of my favorite characters, it's just forgettable, and it's just like I know I'm gonna be one of the only people saying this, but it's just I don't really care. Like this movie is whatever. I feel like I think I prefer the first movie. I'll be honest. You guys are saying that there's improvements in this movie, and there are, but I think overall I enjoyed the first movie more.
So I think for me, the main reason I enjoy this is mainly just for Carnage. I think that just shoves it above the first one just because we had some, actual, fight, and like the villain was like actually a villain, and like wasn't just like comic booky mustache like humans are so inferior, So I don't know. Like I like that they had like a good villain. I enjoyed it. I certainly hope there's more people added to the fandom. I hope a lot of the fans are happy. We're cynical old men, so like obviously we're not, but I hope they were. And I hope this finally brings Cletus Cassidy fucking back alive in the comics. Please, dear God, please.
Hashtag bring back Cletus Cassidy.
Yes.
But yeah, so as for me, like again, I've only seen this movie once. I have to see it at least one more time to actually give it a proper rating. Because right now, I'm gonna go with like a 7. Right? Again, this like Venom, Let There Be Carnage. It's not perfect by any means. But again, to me, it has a lot of improvements. Again, I did love Carnage, but I think he just wasn't utilized to the fullest extent that everyone thought he was going to be. But again, I still enjoyed the movie. I like it, but I have to see it at least one more time just to soak it all in, just to get it in there. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So, yeah.
And I mean, what more can I say than just repeating my two prefaces? I absolutely loved this movie, and I had a fun time with it. I still think it was much better than the first movie, but that being said, it has its flaws, and the flaws for this movie, as a fan, are much more egregious than the flaws of the last movie.
I would
That's where I'll leave it.
definitely agree with you guys. I feel like this movie, the best way for me to sum it up, I feel when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's really bad. Like I liked Cletus, so like we talked about a lot what we liked, what we didn't like, but I also agree with Carlos that I probably need to see it one more time. So I think that's a good way to end it off.
Yeah.
Oh wait, the
What?
Mrs. Chin, Venom, and thing was the worst part of the movie. That was
Well,
so
you
fucking cringe.
you don't like Venom
It
or
was
her
so
seducing
cringe.
Venom? Nah, it's
It
great.
was so cringe, dude. I was cringing.
No,
Venom is a
I
bi
was-
Venom all
icon,
day,
all right?
every day.
Venom can like
I didn't
whatever
like it.
Venom wants.
It was
She
cringe.
Venom all day, every day. Okay.
Yes.
Like and like just the Mrs. Chin face with like Venom's eyes and teeth was
Yeah, that was
bad. It was
cringe.
cringe.
That was cringe. Yeah, I'm not.
It was
Oh,
hashtag cringe.
Oh yeah. So as a final thing, I had the chance last February 2020, to visit when they were shooting in San Francisco, 2 different scenes that they were shooting, and happy to report that I saw both of these scenes in the movie in their final products. So the scenes that I saw were the first one I saw was the scene where Venom was tearing Eddie's bike apart in the alleyway and then kind of escapes out of the alleyway. So I got to see that scene, and I can confirm that that entire scene, as I saw it shot, was in the film. The second scene I saw was when, and I didn't, we didn't know at this time that it was She-Venom doing this, but She-Venom breaking Eddie out of the police station and running off with him. So I did get to see her breaking out and jumping down from the police station. But then there was a second part of that scene that they filmed that I did not see in the movie, so it's a deleted scene, and it was her carrying Eddie and running across down the street with him.
Yeah, I'm really curious what the deleted scenes are going to be when the Blu-ray and 4K come out.
Or She Venom.
Yeah. Or She.
All right, so that wraps up our review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Join us on our next episode, which will be pretty soon, as we review the Symbiote comics of September 2021, including the final 3 issues of Extreme Carnage. And I think we're going to have some mixed reviews there from what I've heard. But you can listen to We Are Venomaniacs on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Music and iTunes, Audible, and YouTube. We can also be found on Twitter at WAV_podcast. Check us out on our Discord, where you can geek out with a community of Venomaniacs like us. And as always, thank you to my fellow co-hosts, Carlos, Tyler, and Aaron, for joining me today, as well as Jonathan.
No problem.
Thanks for listening again, guys.
Thank
It's always
you.
a blast to be here. Thanks for having me again. I love being here and talking Venom and Carnage.
Can't wait
Yep.
for the She Venom movie. Woo!
And thanks to the Venom site for permitting us to make this podcast under the TVS banner and all of your generous support. And finally, thank you, loyal listeners and fellow Venomaniacs. You guys make an awesome community, and it's an honor to be your voice on the airwaves. Together, we are Venomaniacs.